What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? How is the form? And in this video, we're going to be looking at the Derry footballers because it has been a chaotic year for the Derry footballers in more than one way. On the pitch, off the pitch, it has been a disastrous year. And, well, they've got a new manager. Paddy Talley has been announced as the Derry senior football manager after a Tyrone man obviously being in charge in Mickey Harte, and obviously all the criticism that Mickey Harte got for being a Tyrone legend and of course, you know, being so affiliated with Tyrone. They've then gone out and appointed another Tyrone man, and Paddy Talley, coincidentally. Now, obviously, it is a little bit different. I mean, Paddy Talley, obviously a player with Tyrone, but certainly probably doesn't have the legendary status that Mickey Harte would have had. And I'm sure Derry supporters maybe would have grown up, I say hate is a strong word, but certainly disliking Mickey Harte to quite high levels. I don't think that same level would have been there for Paddy Talley. And to be fair, Rory Gallagher is, you know, technically a Fermanagh man. You know, he's not actually a Derry manager. And that was obviously the man that they had in charge previously who won Ulster titles. And it was most certainly the man that they did want in charge as well. But look, 5 months on from Mickey Harte leaving in July, Derry have finally appointed their next manager, and you were starting to wonder, like, even I might maybe get a look in at this job at this stage, because I mean, it seemed like everybody was getting spouted. Names were getting spouted left, right and centre. Joe Brolly was being considered. I mean, they were looking at Enda McGinley. They were looking at, you know, ex-Derry players left, right and centre. They were looking at the assistant who was obviously in charge of the Derry footballers when everything happened with Rory Gallagher. Philly McMahon even got a bizarre mention as well, and apparently he had a ticket to become the Derry manager, and that was even under consideration before Paddy Talley eventually got the job. So it did feel like a little bit of a bizarre scenario. Everybody very much in the running to become the Derry football manager, but eventually they've settled on Paddy Talley. Now, we'll get on to Paddy Talley a little bit later, whether it's a good appointment or bad appointment, and I would be very curious to know Derry supporters' opinions on this. But lads, like, what on earth has happened with Derry here? I mean, how has it taken them this long? I mean, nearly 5 months after Mickey Harte has left his role as Derry manager, and, you know, 4 months, 4 to 5 months, whatever it might be, after leaving his role as Derry manager, and here is Derry not able to replace him. I mean, in that time, Leitrim have had 2 managers. I mean, they had Mickey Graham, he fucked off. Now they've got Stephen Poacher in. Longford have appointed a manager. Tipperary have appointed a manager. Clare have appointed a manager. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean to show any disrespect to those counties, but, like, let's be honest, the proposition of managing those counties in comparison to managing Derry, you know, it's a complete night and day scenario there. You're talking about going into a Derry team that, for me, is still a formidable side. Yes, they had a very bad year last year. Yes, they lost a couple of games. You know, things went bad very, very south, and it was a miserable championship. But let's not forget, we're talking about a team here that won 2 Ulster titles in recent memory. Obviously didn't win one this year, but won one in 23 and 22. They won a league title this year. You know, they've got to All-Ireland semi-finals in back-to-back seasons. Obviously lost to Kerry in the quarters this season. This Derry side is a very, very good team. You've got 2, you know, probably one of the best midfield pairings in the country in Brendan Rodgers and Conor Glass. You've got a star-studded forward in Shane McGuigan. You've got younger players coming through as well who've really stood up in the last couple of seasons. So this idea for me that this Derry job was not wanted, or that, you know, people didn't put their hat into the ring, I do find that a little bit bizarre, to be honest with you. Now, I do think a big reason for this was obviously the fact that they were most certainly hanging their hat on getting Rory Gallagher back as manager. For those of you who don't know, Rory Gallagher was the manager of the Derry footballers for a couple of years, and he won an Ulster title, very much led the rise of the Derry footballers in the last couple of years. And then, yeah, a whole bunch of things obviously happened behind the scenes, which I won't really get into in this video, but I'm sure most people know. I mean, Google Rory Gallagher, Derry's name, and you'll probably know what I am speaking about. But I think they were very much hanging their hat on him becoming the Derry football manager again, coming back into the fold as Derry manager. Obviously, there was a whole host of obstacles that they would have had to clear before he could become the manager, and it certainly wasn't a guarantee. And in the end, it hasn't happened. And look, I think overall, given the noise, the background noise, the controversy that would have come with it, I do think it was the fair decision. But what I would say is, Like, did Derry not have a contingency plan in place here? Like, did they not look at alternatives? Was Malachy O'Rourke ever considered for this position? Like, I'll be very curious to know. Like, obviously he did become the manager of Tyrone, and look, managing Tyrone is a, fantastic job, make no mistake about it, especially with all the young players and everything that's come through. He obviously has a bit of history with Tyrone as well. But he was managing in Derry. He was managing Watty Graham's Glen. I nearly said Slot Neil there. I think Watty Graham's Glen fans were about to throw their boot at me there. But yeah, he was managing Watty Graham's Glen, won an All-Ireland there. I do think I'll be interested to know how this Derry job was being sold, because my opinion is that this job was not being sold correctly. Because for Malachy O'Rourke, you're coming into a Derry side that for me can make the step up to win an All-Ireland next year. I don't think it's impossible. Whereas I think with Tyrone, there's a bit more work to be done there. Probably a few years needs to be put in there before you can take Tyrone on to the next level. Now, don't get me wrong, Tyrone are that type of team who can just win an All-Ireland out of nowhere. And as I've, made a video a couple of weeks ago or months ago speaking about that, but I'm just fascinated to know, was Malachy O'Rourke ever considered for the Derry job? Was he offered it? Did he turn it down and then fancy the Tyrone job instead? And then, you had numerous other candidates who were being mentioned. Kieran Mina, I think, was a strong link as well. The man who sort of replaced Rory Gallagher in the interim, shall we say, before Mickey Harte came in. And to be honest with you, I don't get how he's not the Derry manager. For me, he should have been the man they should have got. Now, I know he went it down, and apparently he doesn't fancy being a manager, or doesn't want to be a manager, just wants to be a coach, doesn't like the limelight and everything else associated with it. But I thought he would have been the perfect replacement for Mickey Harte, or for who came before him. Do you know that way? Because Kieran Mina was the man who replaced Gallagher in the interim. He got that Derry side over the line, winning the Ulster title, albeit via penalty shootout. And then that performance versus Kerry as well in the All-Ireland semi-finals, they were so close to winning that game. Do you know what I mean? It was very close. They pushed Kerry to the absolute inch of their collar, and probably should have won that game, in my opinion. So I think Kieran Mina would have been a fantastic appointment. But again, I understand maybe he doesn't want to become a manager, and that's probably why he turned the job down. But I don't understand, surely this job should be sold a little bit better, because with Derry, as I said, you've got star-studded young players coming through in the likes of Oisin and Conor Doherty. You've got Brendan Rodgers, Conor Glass, Kieran McFall, Shane McGuigan. You've got some very, very good footballers in this Derry side. Younger players like Lakeland Murray, who's looked very good as well. So I think it's such a promising job to take. And I think with a side that has won honours, they have won major honours, they've won a league title, they've won Ulster titles. I just don't understand how they've sort of fallen on what seems to be their fourth or fifth choice manager in Paddy Tally. And again, it's also another Tyrone man as well. Now, in regards to the Paddy Tally appointment, I mean, there are obviously a lot of unknowns about this one. Paddy Tally got a lot of praise and, I suppose, sort of gratitude and everything else with Kerry winning the All-Ireland in 2022. He was the man who came in as a defensive coach, sort of adopted a sweeper role within that Kerry side. They conceded 1 goal from open play in the entirety of that year. And Kerry went on to win the All-Ireland in 2022, obviously beat Dublin in the semi-finals, and then Galway in the final. It is interesting though, and to be fair, Colin Parkinson from Smaller Fish GAA has pointed this fact out as well. Kerry's defence the last couple of years hasn't been great, and for whatever reason, it seems to be Jack O'Connor who's getting the blame for this, and not Paddy Tally, although he was brought in to be the defensive coach. So yeah, a little bit unusual there. Paddy Tally did manage down for a couple of years as well, sort of around COVID, and yeah, that didn't really go too well. To be fair to Paddy Tally though, James McCartan, ex-Down manager who actually led Down to the All-Ireland final in 2010, he came in as the replacement for Paddy Tally, and that went absolutely tits up as well. So yeah, if it's going bad for him, then you can kind of understand it for Paddy Tally. So it's an interesting one. I mean, he's probably from a similar school of thought a little bit in Rory Gallagher. Rory Gallagher, I think, as we very well know, set Derry up very, very strong defensively. But I think the more the time went on, he actually saw that Derry were evolving their game. And I think when people think of Rory Gallagher teams and, what happens on the pitch. They think of defensive systems and all this crack, Jim McGuinness style football, when it actually wasn't really like that. They actually were quite attacking in moments, and we saw that, and we saw the progression of their football. And to be fair, even Jim McGuinness' Donegal now don't play that same brand of football. So it'd be interesting to see what way Paddy Talley approaches it. You've got new rules coming into Gaelic football as well, which will probably make it harder for the more sort of defensive coaches. But I think it will be back to basics for Derry, and there is a lot of unknowns. Like, I think to sit here and say it's, Paddy Talley won't be successful with Derry, I think would be sort of looking ahead too far. Because we don't know. We honestly don't know. Like, how much of an influence did he have with Kerry? We obviously don't know. Things didn't go well with Down, but I don't think you can really read into that. So it's a bit of a shot in the dark, in all honesty. And I think the reality was with Gallagher, obviously not happening, and we obviously understand the reasons for that, with the fact they didn't get Maliki O'Rourke. I think they should have got Kieran Mina. Why that didn't happen, I don't know. You're looking at some of the underage success that Derry have had in recent years. Them managers weren't brought on board, so then you're left probably with your fourth, your fifth choice. And like, the fact that they were considering a managerial sort of ticket with Philly McMahon spearheading it. Like, I'm a Dublin fan, massive Dublin fan, a lot of time for Philly McMahon, loved him as a player. Obviously, there are a lot of people, I'm sure, watching this video who didn't like him as a player, and I understand that, to be fair. But the idea that he was going to become the Derry manager is just a little bit wild, in my opinion. Like, I could understand Andy Moran going to Leitrim. I can understand Carlo appointing, left field managers. I can understand Longford going for Paddy Christie. And you can understand sort of the lower level counties taking a bit of a shot in the dark because they have to. But the fact that Derry were in a situation where they were going to appoint Philly McMahon is just a little bit mental, in my opinion. A little bit bizarre. Don't get me wrong, maybe he would have went in there and done a very, very good job, but it's just a little bit bizarre that it came to that. And look, I'm sure he would have had a star-studded backroom team, probably some big ex-players or, an ex-manager in there, something of that nature. But yeah, little bit bizarre, little bit mad. Paddy Talley eventually does get the job, and will it work? Will it not work? Obviously, only time will tell. Do let me know your opinions, your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll be very, very curious to know what people think about this appointment. For me personally, it's a massive risk, but I think whoever they got at this stage was a massive risk. And it's just mad, like, to think back in March when Derry won the league, everybody was touting Derry as massive, massive favourites, and it just feels like on the pitch and off the pitch, it's just been setback after setback. And even, Derry City in the League of Ireland, even they're getting massive setbacks recently, losing in the final of the FAI Cup. So yeah, I just have to throw that in there. Sorry, Derry, I'm really standing on your grave right now, to be fair. But look, I do think the Derry footballers have a very, very good team. They've got great players, and for me, they can be serious contenders next year. There's no doubt about it. It's just be interesting to see, do the players buy in to Paddy Talley, and it'll be very interesting to see obviously how they get on now in the league as well. But do let me know your opinions, your thoughts in the comments down below, and until the next video, speak to y'all soon.